Good morning. Thank you for joining us for the Utah Water Supply briefing. I am Trevor Grout. I will be the presenter today. But issuing forecasts for the state of Utah really is a team effort. And we have Brenda, myself, Wolfgang, Nanette, and Cody that all help out with the forecasting. Hang on. Today, as an overview of what we're going to talk about, we're going to start off talking a little bit about model soil moisture conditions. Then we'll go into a recap of precipitation and snow. And then we'll dive into our water supply forecasts. And then we'll talk a little bit about the forecast error. And then we'll conclude talking about upcoming weather, and we'll have some time for questions. As always, this webinar is being recorded, and the slides are also available on our webpage. Model soil moisture conditions typically are driven by and a reflection of the previous year's runoff, as well as the summer and fall precipitation. Every fall in November, typically after irrigation season is ended, we'll make adjustments to our soil moisture in our model, and we use a variety of data sources to do that, from stream flow to reservoir inflows to precipitation. And soil moisture is really important because typically above normal soil moistures would have a positive impact on runoff efficiency, and below normal soil moisture conditions would have a negative impact on runoff efficiency. So the plot on the left is a map of our soil moisture this last fall coming into this winter season. As you can see, most of Utah was near to above normal, and that can be because of the good runoff that we had last year in the above normal precipitation. And just as a reminder, the timing and magnitude of the spring runoff really is a result of multiple factors, including the snowpack, spring weather, and the soil moisture. Comparing the soil moisture from last year to this past year, the fall of 2022, we were in pretty bad shape, below normal. And then coming into this year, a lot of areas were above normal. On the image on the far right, you can see the change from the previous year to this past year. You can see a lot of the greens indicate an improvement in soil moisture conditions across most areas of Utah. Looking at the precipitation for January, the figure on the left shows percent of average across all of the basins, and then the middle figure shows the percent of average across the mainly the higher elevations or areas that contribute the most to the stream flow. Lots of blues on the map, which would indicate above average. January was a very active month, and that showed as far as the percent of average precipitation. Many areas were above average, ranging from 112% to as much as 150% of average. Looking at the water year as a whole from October to January, despite January being a pretty productive month as far as precipitation was concerned, we are still below average for a number of basins for the water year, although January did help to push that water year precipitation closer to normal for a handful of basins. Looking at our snowpack conditions, Utah River basins generally had improved snowpack due to the precipitation in January, and by February 1st, conditions were better than they were January 1st, but generally they were still below normal. You can see the change in precipitation on the table on the far right column. Most areas did have a pretty considerable improvement. And on the left, you can see a figure with our model SWE for the significant contributing areas in the shaded colors, overlaid by NRCS SNOTEL sites in the squares. You can still see southern Utah still has a larger deficit, lower percent of normal, and portions of eastern Utah as well. We're in the middle of a pretty substantial storm cycle. Every day this month, except for maybe the first day, is seeing precipitation somewhere in the state of Utah. That's really helped out with the snowpack. As you can see on the figure on the far right, there's a table there with the change from the beginning of the month to yesterday. And you can see a lot of areas have improved considerably, especially down south in the Virgin, where they were suffering the most. So let's dive into our water supply forecasts. This is a figure on the left of the whole state of our water supply points. The colors indicate the percent of average. And then on the right, we have a table of some select locations and how they are as a percent of normal. The Bear River at the Utah-Wyoming state line was 90% of normal. We're forecasting that to be 90% of normal. The Weber at Oakley, 87% of normal. Big Cottonwood Creek, 106% of normal. The Provo River at Woodland, 90% of normal. The Deschênes at Taviona, 78%. The Sevier at Hatch, 77%, and then the Virgin, 112%. Looking at specific basins in a little more detail, the Bear River Basin, we're forecasting anywhere from 80 to 105% of normal. In the figure, you can see the model snow percent. The figure on the left is a figure of model snow percent of normal in the shaded colors. And then the triangles are the water supply forecast points. Looking more in detail at Blacksmith Fork near Hiram, we're expecting forecasts of 38,000 acre feet, which is 103% of average. And just as a review of how we do the modeling, on the upper right-hand corner, in the figure on the upper right, every day we produce a probabilistic forecast, and that is indicated in the shaded areas. The probabilistic forecast ranges from the 10th percentile to the 90th percentile, which is that shaded blue. And then the blue line is the 50th percentile. Overlaid on top of that are our official forecasts, which are the pink bars. So you can see the January 1st forecast and then the recently issued February 1st forecast. So during a wetter condition, at the top of the graph, you would see the volume that has a 10% chance of being exceeded would be 66,000 acre feet. And then during a drier scenario, the volume that has a 90% chance of being exceeded would be 27,000 acre feet. And then looking at the snow plot for this basin, Bug Lake SNOTEL site, you can see how the snow is accumulated throughout the course of the season. And right now, as of yesterday, they're standing at 120% of normal. Moving to the Weber River Basin, the forecast range is 80 to 95% of normal. And looking at the Weber at Oakley, in the upper right-hand corner, this is our evolution plot for that site. You can see we're forecasting 97,000 acre feet, which is 87% of average. And on the bottom right is a plot of the snow conditions for that basin. As you can see, it's at 104% of normal. And just a comparison, you can see how fantastic the 2023 snow year was, or water year was, in the green line. Moving to the Provo River Basin, we are forecasting the April through July volumes to be anywhere between 70 to 95% of normal. And looking at the Provo at Woodland site, we're expecting 86,000 acre feet, which is 90% of average. And you can see a snowtail site, Trial Lake, is at 102% of normal in the lower right. Moving to the Six Creeks Basin, the forecast range is anywhere between 100 to 110% of normal. And looking at Little Cottonwood Creek near Salt Lake, we are anticipating a forecast of, we're forecasting an April through July volume of 36,000 acre feet, and that's 106% of average. And looking at the snowtail plot at Snowbird, just to give you an example of how much things are changing in the last week or so, on February 1st, we were at 101% of normal, but as of yesterday, we were sitting at 122% of normal. Moving to the Duchesne, the forecasts here are ranging anywhere from 55 to 80% of normal. And if we take a look at Lake Fork, we're expecting our forecast on February 1st is expecting 40,000 acre feet, which is 62% of average. Of note, we have a 10% chance of a record low April through July runoff in a dry scenario. But taking a look at the snowtail in early January, we were sitting at the lowest on record at 57%. But you can see how things have improved since then, as we're sitting at 92% as of yesterday, 92% of normal. And finally, looking at the Virgin and Sevier River basins, we're predicting our forecast ranges between 60 to 115% of normal. And looking at the Sevier River at Hatch, our February 1st forecast is 37,000 acre feet, which is 77% of average. And here we can also see the improvement on the Sevier River Basin headwaters, which is a group of 5 snowtail sites. We have January 1st, we had 41% of normal snowpack, and things have improved considerably. As of yesterday, we were sitting at 94% of normal. Real quickly about our errors that we might expect. On the map on the left, we have the typical error associated with the February forecast. And then on the right, in the upper right in the box there, we have select locations in the February 1st forecast, the average forecast error, ranging from about 20% to up to 40%. And really the thing to keep in mind here is the primary driver for this is the future weather uncertainty. We still have quite a bit of time to accumulate more snow, and that's the primary driver for error, is that uncertainty of the weather. Typically, we do better on our forecasts in these high elevation headwater locations and basins, as well as areas where we have a good handle on what the diversions are. And conversely, we do worse in areas where it's lower elevation, where rain may have more of an impact, and areas where we may not know as much about the diversions. Looking forward in the next 7 days, we have a pretty active streak continuing until the end of the week, and then it looks like it might dry out sometime next week. But we're looking at some pretty healthy precipitation totals of 1 to 2 inches across large portions of especially the high elevation areas. Looks like the Virgin watershed will also do particularly well. Then we'll go into drier conditions next week. So hopefully we can add to this snowpack even more so this week. Looking forward a little longer range through the middle of the month, most of Utah, except for the far northern part, has above average chances of above average precipitation, increased chances of above average precipitation. And the temperatures, it looks like we have increased chances for below average temperatures throughout the state. So in summary, soil moisture coming into this winter season was near to above normal across most of Utah and markedly better conditions than last year. The current snow conditions that we have, most basins up through yesterday are slightly above to slightly below normal, with the exception being the Virgin watershed. And looking at our water supply forecast, on the table on the right, this is the median of all the percent of averages for each basin. And you can see we haven't increased since the January forecast, but most areas are still sitting at a below average forecast. And then the weather, we're looking at a very active period this coming week before things start to dry out. So our next presentation will be in a month from now on March 7th. We typically do 2 presentations back to back. Colorado River Basin, if you're interested in that, will be at 10 a.m. on March 7th, and then we'll follow that up with the Utah Great Basin at 11:30. As always, you can register to attend these on our webpage. And this is how you would do that. You can sign up for the webinars if you go to the news section. And, you can also be put on our email lists. So with that, that's all I have at the moment. So we'll take time for some questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Appreciate you joining us today. If you do have any questions, please reach out to us. Here's our email addresses and what areas we're responsible for forecasting. And as always, you can call us on our operations line as well. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next month.